Welcome indeed. How is everybody doing tonight?
Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. Let me just fix something with the music real quick, or something with the audio levels, and we will be going right into the show. While I'm messing with this, Michael, how was your week?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I've been playing a lot of F1 2020 and just searching for new work and everything like that because COVID happened and it put a lot of us behind. So
Yeah,
you know,
unfortunately.
you know, you're back. You fell down, but the best thing about it is you got to pick yourself back up again. And sometimes when you get yourself back up, you learn that you feel better than when you did when you fell down.
I can agree with that
So
100%.
you know, for everybody struggling, with this COVID situation going on right now, you all might be down, but remember that there are still some opportunities out there to pick yourself back up again.
Let's go ahead and start with the show. We're going to start with Formula One today because the Formula One race, the Italian Grand Prix, that race did not go the way we expected. I think that's the good way. Well, half of it didn't go the way we expected it.
What I did the morning of that race?
What?
The night before that race, I decided that I'm not going to watch it because I was just like, well, it's Monza. Mercedes is too fast in a straight line. Ferrari can't beat them. Red Bull can't beat them. So I'm just going to, you know what I did? I went fishing that morning.
Nice.
And then I hear the group chat blowing up, and I'm like, sorry, what? So I got home, and I see Pierre Gasly has won the Italian Grand Prix, and I was like, what the hell happened?
Let's talk about what happened in that race first to cause that to happen. There was a lot of things in sequence that happened here. We had a caution for Kevin Magnussen, whose engine expired on lap 17, and where his car stopped was in a dangerous position, so they put out the real safety car. As they did, they also closed the pits. Lewis Hamilton's team either didn't hear the message or didn't realize what happened, and they roll in, do the stop under a closed pit. Antonio Giovinazzi also pitted under a closed pit. They both got penalized. However, as they were doing the investigation before to decide to actually penalize them, Charles Leclerc has an absolutely horrific accident at the Parabolica, which is the last corner on the racetrack where he comes swinging back on the front stretch. Thankfully, Charles was okay. That facilitated a red flag. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Now, what that did was that froze the field. During that time, give me 1 second. Sorry, allergies. During that time, as the field is bunched up on pit road and obviously not going anywhere as they're working on the barrier, the penalty comes down that Giovinazzi and Hamilton will have 10-second stop-go penalties on the restart. I have a problem with how this penalty came down. This is something that has irritated me with Formula One for a couple of years now. It should not take 15 minutes to decide a pit road penalty. It shouldn't take.
I can agree with that.
It shouldn't take a Law and Order SVU style investigation to figure out whether or not somebody sped on pit lane or whether or not someone entered a closed pits. A lot of people blame NASCAR for a lot of stuff, but here's the thing about NASCAR. If you get a pit road penalty, you know it by the time you bunch back up with the rest of the field. It doesn't take 5 minutes or we're 10 green flag laps into the race that all of a sudden, oh, you sped under pit lane, so now we have to have you come do a pass through. No. Under that same caution, you sped on pit lane, you get popped for it, you go to the back of the line. Same thing with entering close. The minute you enter the closed pit, they've already assessed the penalty. I don't know why F1, every single penalty requires 20 minutes of investigation and looking at 50 cameras. Not everything requires all this.
It absolutely doesn't, and it was clear as day. He honestly just came down on the pit road when under red flag. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So it was clear as day, and they took about a good 15 minutes just to decide whether to penalize him or not. And I'm like, it's clear as day.
I mean,
Ray
Charles could have made that call.
Some people get into the debate of, the reason they took so long was they were thinking about actually letting Hamilton get away with it or not. And I'm just like, no, they can't do that.
And stop right there. One of the reasons that type of scrutiny comes around Formula One decisions is because they take an abnormal time to decide the most basic stuff. It's not like the two cars collided and you need to look at the replays to do that. No, you deem the pit road closed. Did Lewis Hamilton come down before y'all said it was open? Yes, he did. That penalty should have already been assessed by the time he got to the exit of pit road. And I'm not saying that as if it would have saved his race. It wouldn't have. It really wouldn't have. You couldn't pass that day because of all the air on the back of the cars, or because of all the dirty air. You weren't going to be able to get back up to the leader. But it shouldn't have taken 2 caution flags into a red flag period to figure out the most basic penalty. And that brings me to my second point, is Formula One's rules regarding yellow and red flags, where usually the pit road is open on a safety car. It shouldn't be, because teams shouldn't be able to get an advantage based on being so far out that they're right at the pit lane when the yellow flag is called. It should be, and a lot of this would help if they had 2 pit boxes. That's a conversation for another day. You should have to catch up to the pace car before you get to pit. It shouldn't be one car gets to pit because they were right there when the safety car was called and everybody else got to go back around. The other thing which drew the ire of a lot of people, Michael, you may remember this, under the red flag, all the teams changed their tires. There's no way you should be allowed to work on your car under red flag under any circumstances.
I can agree with that. I think you shouldn't be able to do that at all because, it's a red flag, cars are parked, field is frozen, and you shouldn't be able to just do anything on that. And then I feel like some people are just going to be like, well, that's NASCAR's rules. That's the American way. And I'm just like, no, I really feel like you shouldn't, because that promotes, in my opinion, an advantage to certain teams, because you can come in, change 4 tires, and then get back out. I think the field should stay frozen during this time because in my opinion, it just allows you to be more fair in the racing terms, because when a safety car comes out, it just changes everything.
I just looked at the chat. Taryn just asked, did you see the Milwaukee Bucks? Were you out while you were out fishing?
Did I see any what?
Did you see the Milwaukee Bucks while you were out fishing, the basketball team?
Yeah, they were out there. I couldn't. Not even my line can save them.
No, I cannot believe that happened. But anyway, speaking of I cannot believe that happened, so that left that actually left Lance Stroll with the lead. Stroll got a terrible restart off of the standing start after the red flag. He ended up rallying back for third. Carlos Sainz was charging in his McLaren Renault to finish second.
Yeah, because he knew he had a shot to win. That's what he was charging.
Well, he knew he had a shot to win because he saw in the cars that he's going to be driving next year and was like, I better get this done right now, because that boy's in trouble. I still say
this man is researching how to undo contract.
He needs to figure out a way to undo that contract right now. Like, he needs a flashback button stat. This was not a good move for Carlos Sainz to be going from Renault to Ferrari right now.
And it's sad because because we all know that another big change that people forgot is that McLaren's going to Mercedes next year.
Oof.
And I'm just like, yeah, people forgot about that. So.
And they shouldn't have left Mercedes, to be honest, if we really want to talk about it with McLaren. They shouldn't have left.
I always say it might have been cost or something like that. That's why they went to Honda, but.
Well, they were holding their nose in the air and saying, well, we don't want to be a customer team. We want to be the the main team when it comes to engine supplier. And they went to Honda, and we saw how that went.
Yeah. I mean, their Renault days they're okay, but yeah, if they go back to Mercedes, I think they'll actually be a challenge. So I think it's a bad move by Sainz. And then I remember I read an article. I don't remember who the article is from, but they said next year the Ferrari's still going to struggle. Like they're prioritizing 2022. So they're saying screw next year's car. We're going to work on 2022's car.
I mean, all the teams,
Ferrari might struggle even more.
Yeah, and that's not good. But other teams, I think, are doing that as well, because 2021 is basically going to be what we have now as far as cars on 2020. It basically froze development for this season. I mean, for next season. So 2022 and the new regulations change and the new cars come out with those beautiful 18-inch wheels, by the way. I love those on F2. I cannot wait to get those on a Formula One car. With everything changing in 2022, you might as well just work on that instead of trying to develop anything on the 2021 car, to be honest.
So,
because it's
in
just
my
gonna be the same
opinion,
car.
Sainz is just going to be there in Ferrari. Maybe 2022, they'll pick themselves back up again, but right now, next year, they're just going to kind of just be there. And I feel bad for Leclerc and him because, yeah, next year they're just going to possibly just be there. Yeah, but just running around.
So Pierre Gasly ends up winning this race for AlphaTauri, formerly Toro Rosso. The second win for AlphaTauri. First win for this team, 2008 Italian GP in the wet. Sebastian Vettel ended up winning that race. Fast forward some 18 years, Pierre Gasly ends up winning the race.
After he was demoted,
mind you. 11 years, sorry.
A year after he was demoted.
Right. Or 12 years. I know how to do math, I swear. But yeah, a year after he's demoted from Red Bull, he ends up winning for AlphaTauri. And he's been having a pretty good season for AlphaTauri as well.
Yeah, he's been outscoring Kvyat and just killing it for AlphaTauri. Kind of makes me feel like there was just some issues with, him and the team at Red Bull because, comparing to how he's running now to where he's running at AlphaTauri, you notice there's a difference in, his mentality and, how he's driving. He's a little bit more aggressive. You can say that the demotion kind of, put a fire in his gut, but in my opinion, he found better chemistry there.
Yeah.
Because, Red Bull, in my opinion, they just kind of don't support the second driver as much as the first one.
They don't. It's a one-driver team with the second car just there for regulations, to be honest. I mean, we've seen it so many times with Vettel and Weber and Ricciardo and Verstappen and Gasly the first time around, and now Verstappen and Albon. There is no less driver on a Formula One grid than the second driver at Red Bull because you just get no support. I mean, it's obvious at this point. Look at where Albon has run this year compared to where Verstappen has run this year.
And people are saying Albon is about to get boosted out of the seat.
So they're going to do.
Who are you going to boost Albon out of the seat for?
So what? They're going to put Gasly back in there to do the same thing Albon is doing because y'all won't give him the
Gasly
same.
Gasly don't want nothing to do with that seat anymore.
I mean, if I was Albon, I'd be waiting because the Lewis Hamilton seat is about to come up. Like he is. There's more days behind him in Formula One than there are ahead of him. I don't think Lewis goes very far into 2022, especially because he's going to break the World Drivers' Championships record next season. I think we all know that, barring a major nightmare or major miracle, depending on which side you are. He's going to be the 2020 and 2021 world champion at this point, and drives like Sunday proved it, where Valtteri Bottas had an opportunity to put a stamp on this championship and say, no, this ain't over yet. He only gained 3 points on Lewis Hamilton on Sunday because he got mired in 5th. Lewis Hamilton drove from the back of the field in conditions where it was poor for passing because that Mercedes car had too much aerodynamics on, or too much aero dialed into the setup. Hamilton rallied back for 7th. Bottas rode in 6th for most of that race, and then eventually ended up picking up 5th place near the end. There is no battle for the championship between the Mercedes cars because Bottas is not on that level. He's just not. And I think Sunday proved it. He is not on the same level as Lewis Hamilton as a driver.
Nah, it's not. We used to talk about how, Bottas technically can't get on the same level, but I actually think like he's not on the same level as he used to be. Mm-hmm. Well, not that he used to be, but I don't think he's on the same level at all.
I don't think
like Hamilton is a whole different ball game.
And that's not to say anything bad about Bottas. You got to remember, Lewis Hamilton is a GOAT. He is the modern day GOAT of Formula One and probably the new GOAT of Formula One, overtaking Schumacher and Senna here in a couple of years, especially if he gets this 8th championship. He's already got the poles record. He's got a point streak that is higher than Schumacher's, an active point streak. All that's left of the championships, he's going to tie it this year and probably beat it next year.
Yep. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, but it is his time. Plus, he's got a new team coming up. I think it's called Extreme 44 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an E-Dirt team or something like that.
Yeah, Team X44, yeah.
Yeah. He's got that going on, and I think he's pretty much laying the foundations of his retirement, just, doing some more motorsport things and getting into other things before, he calls it quits on F1.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to Gasly, real quick, where do you think he goes? Because they're going to drop Albon. Not this year. Maybe not this year, but next year. If he doesn't get his act together, where do you see Gasly ending up?
I think temporarily Gasly would probably end up back at Red Bull at the end of this season. But if they can't get it together, then he's going to have to look for greener pastures. And I would be trying to go to the Mercedes seat right now. Although you don't know what the tea leaves are going to be like in 2022. So he might just need to ride it out until, we get a year under our belt in the 2022 regulations, figure out what the top team's going to be and try to go there. If it's Red Bull, then you just got to throw hands with Max Verstappen. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I would love Verstappen to actually get some competition at Red Bull. I think that'll be interesting, even though they don't really allow it there. But I think Verstappen needs some competition. That would be interesting to watch. I don't really know where he could go, to be honest with you. I thought about him going to Alpine with Ocon, because I don't think Alonso is going to have that seat too long.
Yeah, we'll see how long.
I think the Alpine deal was like maybe 1 year. But I don't think him being there at Alpine with Ocon would be good, because I found out recently him and Ocon don't actually like each other. So I don't think that would work. I mean, like I said, Darryl, he might just have to wait for that Hamilton seat to open up. Just
That,
just do stellar performances and wait for that seat to open up. But my other issue is that, Russell getting that seat.
yeah, that is a thing.
And
George Russell's probably gonna be the leader in the clubhouse,
yeah,
for that seat.
yeah, and then like that seat is gonna be. You thought it was crazy when freaking Rosberg left. Oh man, when Hamilton leaves, that seat's gonna be all over. People are gonna be all over that seat.
Yeah, that seat's gonna be up for grabs, and the
But
one thing about Formula One, what we're hoping for at the end of the season, or when we get to 2022 season, is that we get a shakeup on how the teams run. It's important because the win by Gasly was the first time since 2013 a car that wasn't a Mercedes, a Ferrari, or a Red Bull was on the podium. That is a shocking lack of competitiveness outside of the top three teams in Formula One, and really not that competitive because Mercedes, for a lot of that time, had the top two spots, and then it would be like a Red Bull or a Ferrari in third. So what you're hoping for is we need to find a way to hopefully these 2022 rules will make it so that the field is
competitive.
somehow more competitive. It has to be, because this is not fun. Even me as a Lewis Hamilton fan, seeing them dominate with no challenge whatsoever. So that's something that's got to change.
It's got to change, and I don't think going back to that conversation we had before the show. I don't think reverse grid is gonna help that.
No, I mean people are going goo goo gaga over reverse grids. Let me tell you something. The only reason that happened is because Lewis Hamilton had the penalty, and the only reason it was in a position where it affected that team is it came as a penalty during the red flag while the field was bunched up. If that was Lewis Hamilton and that race had stayed green, he would have gotten a lead to where it wouldn't have mattered, or he would have got the lead back on the pit stops. So the stars had to align for us to get us that race. Reverse grids is not going to do that. The only way you're going to make it so that an AlphaTauri can compete for a win is if you make the rules package so that the little teams can actually be competitive with the big teams. Did they do that in 2022? Did they do that with the budget cap? Well, we're going to find out starting next season.
We're definitely going to find out, but we got some other news. We got some other news, Darryl. Actually, two big news.
We actually do, but we're going to take a quick...
Which one do you want to start?
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with that news. And since those two news stories that I think you're thinking about are together, we'll talk about them both at the same time, as there's a big shakeup at Racing Point about to be Aston Martin next season. We'll explain on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on iSports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before, you got to check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
And we're back here on Extra Mile of Ice Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. This is the Extra Mile. Darryl, Kinsey, and Michael with you. Lita off this week. We're going to continue with the program. We're going to continue on Formula One, then get into IndyCar. We're going to start with Formula One with the stories we just led off with in the previous segment, and that is the fact that a change has finally afoot at Racing Point, about to be Aston Martin for next season. I call it the worst kept secret in the Formula One paddock. Everyone pretty much knew this within a week of what happened to when Sebastian Vettel got let go from Ferrari. Perez is out of that seat at Racing Point. Vettel is in next season when that team becomes Aston Martin. Michael, let me get your comments first. What was your immediate feeling when you heard the news?
Perez got shafted. Basically, I'm happy for Vettel. He gets a new shot in Formula One, but Perez definitely got the short end of the stick in this whole ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great driver, and I don't think the way he just kind of got his contract ripped in half like that is just, that's not the way to go, because Daddy Stroll isn't going to let his son go. So yeah, I just don't like the way that went, Darryl. I mean, like I said, I'm happy for Vettel. He gets another shot, but the way that happened to Perez just leaves a sour taste in my mouth,
Yep. A lot of people did not like that this move came down. And it sounded like the move wasn't even going to be made. And then all of a sudden they decided to use some out clause in his contract, and Perez is out, Vettel is in. I'm not really sure what the hype over putting Sebastian Vettel in that car is. Yes, he's a 4-time champion, but have we all seen what he's done the last couple of years? He is cooked as a championship contender, in my opinion. We've already saw that when he was the chief rival to Hamilton the last couple of years. He just fell apart when it mattered the most, and Hamilton waltzed off to championships. And Vettel is falling apart. I really don't know what people are going to think, or people think that he's going to do once he gets over to Aston Martin, but I don't have him being a championship contender in that car. Do you?
Not at all. And it comes back to this conversation I saw on Facebook where this guy was like, "Oh, Sebastian Vettel's is gonna do great. You want to know why? Because he has a Mercedes." Mm-hmm. And I was just like, that Mercedes can barely hold a candle to the current Mercedes.
You're right.
And who's to say Aston Martin might have different plans? They might just be like, "Oh, we're not gonna use like a Mercedes engine. We might, mess around and bring our own engine or something like that."
Well, the other thing is they can't just use the pink Mercedes or the green Mercedes next year. They're going to have to design a car from the ground up, which kind of puts Aston Martin on the back foot, because they have to come in, design a whole new car for 2021, and then design a whole new basis for the 2022 rules. So they have to design 2 cars where every other team has to design 1. So they're already going to be struggling there. And then you have the fact that you don't know what they're going to do for engine leasing after this Mercedes deal runs out. And that takes us into the 2022 regulations, and you don't even know what that's going to be like and how that's going to shake up the order. You could see Mercedes where Renault is right now. Now, I don't think that's actually going to happen, but that is one of the things that are possible. So there's no guarantees over the next couple of years that Vettel's going to do anything. Now, on the other side, a lot of people are complaining about Lance Stroll still having the seat. Look, Lance has performed better over the last couple of years, and people got to remember, Lance, as far as Formula One drivers, is still a kid. He is, he is 21 years old. He just became legal to drink in the United States of America. His career is his arc, as far as a Formula One driver, is nowhere near complete. And the only reason people are dumping dirt on him is because, his dad bought the team. If Lawrence Stroll doesn't buy that team, we have 18 Formula One cars going around the track right now, not 20.
And I agree with you. And he's not bad. He's not that bad. I think he's done fine these last couple of years. And, I'm glad he got the seat. But, I just don't like it for Perez because he's not a bad driver.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people linking him up saying, "Oh, he's gonna go and drive at Haas," and I'm like, I don't want to see him get broken at Haas.
No.
Oh, he can go to Williams. That's worse.
That is much worse.
What I do like is what a YouTuber named Arava said, and it's in my opinion, it's the best outcome. Go to IndyCar.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of IndyCar. You know how many people would watch if they see him in IndyCar? Like, he would bring so much attention from Mexico to IndyCar. It would be insane. So I think he should go to IndyCar. He might go to F1, but he might stay in F1. But I think IndyCar would be a lot better place for him. And I just see this as a sad end to the quote-unquote king of the midfield.
Yep. And speaking of drivers going into IndyCar, we're going to jump over to the NTT Data IndyCar Series right now as they're coming down to the home stretch of their season. And there was some major news broken earlier this week that Jimmy Johnson is pairing up with Chip Ganassi Racing for a 2-year deal to run the road and street courses. This is a major deal for Jimmy Johnson, who is now embarking on his second career as a race car driver, where he basically gets to go do whatever he wants during the seasons. And he's going to run IndyCar. Brings a lot of excitement to the IndyCar paddock that the 7-time champion is going to be there, at least on a part-time basis. But, Michael, what are realistic expectations for Jimmy Johnson? Because it's not like he's going to go out there and light the whole world on fire and win every race. So what is reasonable expectations for the 7-time champ?
I think he goes out there and he does well. I don't think he's going to win every road course race because you have Scott Dixon, you have Joseph Newgarden, you have Ryan Hunter-Reay. You have a lot of drivers out there who are freaking good at road courses. So I think he's going to do well. I don't think he's going to win every race, but I think he's going to be around top 10, top 15.
Mm-hmm. I think top 15, just for how tough that field is, top 15 is a good day for him. I think top 10 would be an excellent day. But I think for Jimmy at this point, it's just about having fun. His racing legacy is confirmed. He is one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time. He is going to go first ballot Hall of Famer. None of this is going to diminish that. This is just him going out there, having fun, getting to spend more time at home and race some stuff that he never got a chance to do while he was busy with NASCAR for 20 years of his life. So a lot of people have said, I've wondered if he's going to start the Indy 500. I don't see that being a thing for Jimmy. He's done the oval thing already in NASCAR. So I don't see him doing it again. And to be honest, if I'm him, I'm not climbing out of a 3,400-pound stock car at ovals into a car that if you hit the wall in it, it's between you and God what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I can understand that reasoning too, Darryl. I don't think he's getting in ovals. It's too dangerous, and he's at the end of his motorsports career. And I think, like you said, I think he just wants to have fun.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have fun. If he wins, it's gonna be incredible. But,
if he wins, that's great. But realistically, I don't see him winning like all the time.
I do not see him winning. So we will see what happens. And we're going into the final 6 races of the season, starting this week with the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio. 2 races on the schedule as IndyCar tries to finish up the string of their delayed schedule due to COVID-19. And you go over to the point standings, and Scott Dixon leads 416 to 320 in the championship standings. He has a commanding lead going into the final 6 races, and he's going into a track at Mid-Ohio that he's been very, very good at the past few years. So, Michael, my one question to you is, does Scott Dixon solidify his championship this weekend?
I think he does, because he's just been solid all season, and he's just been consistent, and I think it's just going to take he's just going to need bad luck, honestly, Darryl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how bad it is for his opponents. It's gotten to the point where he just needs a bad day to really give people a chance. But if he doesn't have a bad day, all he has to do is finish strong, and the championship is his.
He might have a bad couple. It might require a bad couple of days, to be honest.
Honestly, that's how it is when you have a solid driver. He's just consistent and consistently fast. It's hard to beat that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So he might get it done this weekend, Darryl.
I think if he has a Scott Dixon type weekend in Mid-Ohio, they're playing out the string for the 2 Indy races in St. Petersburg in October. If he has 2 early failures in Mid-Ohio, then maybe the championship's back on. But he's just been so strong this year, and the season started usually when Scott Dixon is hitting his peak. We've talked about on this show the past couple of years about can anyone survive the second half Dixon charge? Well, that second half Dixon charge became the whole season charge due to what happened with the schedule quirks. And now Scott Dixon's on his way to championship number 6, and he is definitely one of the best IndyCar drivers of all time that we're watching right now. And we've had the privilege of watching his career here in America. He was one of those guys that looked like he was slated to go to F1, came to IndyCar instead, and had a great career, and we're going to miss him in the Target Chip Ganassi cars, or the Chip Ganassi cars, not Target anymore. The Chip Ganassi racing cars.
That's what they were most famous to me for, the Target.
Yes. He was one of those guys you like to hate, but at this point, I respect Dixon for what he's done. He's been able to be Mr. Consistency. He's just got to get a couple more Indy 500s. He's just got to get some Indy 500s. He gets a couple more of those, and at that point, he is the greatest of all time. He's got one already, but he needs a couple more. Just hasn't been able to find that second Indy 500 win yet. Maybe it'll come next year. We'll see. But we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up with NASCAR, as NASCAR's hottest free agent has finally made their decision somewhat. We'll explain on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hi, I'm Brian McLaughlin. In the National Football League, there are approximately 17 million total fans.
I'm Andrew Guzman. My Dallas Cowboys make up almost 9 million of those fans.
And my Seahawks have a very loyal fan base of around 4 million.
That's more than 3/4 of all the fans.
That's absolutely correct, Andrew. And on the Common Ground Football Podcast, we'll be talking about the good, bad, and the ugly of these teams.
We'll have weekly picks, discuss transactions, injuries.
And we'll chat about the rest of the league, too.
Blake freaking Bortles?
Oh, yes. And Captain Andrew Luck.
Excellent. What about Fitzmagic?
Oh, let's not get carried away now.
Oh, all right then.
Join us each week at commongroundfootballpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcast.
It's going to be
awesome.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Vince Wright, the sports governor from the great state of Minnesota, and I want to thank you for listening to Sports Done Right. Make sure you're checking us out on all of our platforms, whether it's Spreaker.com, XSquadAffiliates.com. We're also heard on the Stewart Media and Entertainment Network, so keep it tuned here. More great things coming from Sports Done Right.
Welcome back to the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're going to talk NASCAR now as we get into race number 2 of the playoffs. Give you a quick update on what happened at Darlington. We had 3 incredible races for Throwback Weekend as Darlington Raceway proved while it needs a second date on the schedule, as Kevin Harvick locked his way into the playoffs. On the other side of that, Matt DiBenedetto and the 21 of Matt DiBenedetto, the 12 Ryan Blaney. Terrible days for those two drivers. They're going to need something big this week, as both of them are 17 points behind in the championship. That leads us into this week in Richmond. But before we got there, major news in NASCAR broke today that Darrell Wallace Jr. will not be returning to Richard Petty Motorsports. That news was broken today and confirmed by Wallace on his Instagram and Facebook accounts. Bubba has been one of the most hyped free agents for a number of reasons. He's found himself thrust into this new role as the new leader of NASCAR when it comes to racial issues, everything that happened with the George Floyd case and the Jacob Blake situation as well. He's found himself with new sponsors because of that, as DoorDash, Columbia, and many others, Cash App, to name a few, have joined up with Bubba Wallace. But interestingly, those deals were signed with Wallace and not with RPM. So now that Wallace is on the move, he's taking a lot of sponsors with him on his way to whatever new team he goes with, which unfortunately for RPM means that they're going to be in a lot of trouble sponsorship-wise. But that now begs the question, where is he going? And Michael, where do you think he's going to end up? Michael, you there?
I'm sorry, my mic was muted. I said there's only 2 seat places I realistically seeing him go, because I don't think he wants to stay in the midfield in NASCAR. I think the 48 or the 42 is where he's going to go. Most people say the 42. The 48 would be pretty good too. Mm-hmm. I just think it's between those two cars.
Well, Jenna Fryer did say today that last word with Chip Ganassi that they had rescinded their offer. Hendrick Motorsports said that there was no deal with that they had not put out a deal with the 48 or with Bubba Wallace or offered him a contract to drive the 48. Update: Jenna checked with all 3 of the major teams, and all 3 have denied that they have tendered Bubba Wallace a contract. Now, does that mean anything? Not really. Bubba wouldn't have jumped out here saying that he wasn't going back to RPM if he didn't have a ride already lined up for next season. We'll find out here in the next couple of weeks as things get ironed out where he's going to end up going. But I don't see him jumping out here to like go to a JTG Doherty or any midfield team. If he is going to another team, he is going up, because for reasons we don't need to get into, Bubba's got to win. And he's got to start winning in NASCAR right now if he's going to continue the growth of the sport in the African-American community. A lot of people say, well, that's not what it should be about, but that is riding on Bubba's shoulders, whether you want to say it or not. So he's going somewhere that's going to get him a better chance to win. We just don't know where. But it would be ironic, Michael, to see him end up in the 42 after everything that happened with Larson early this season. And I think Michael may have left himself on mute again. Michael?
Okay, this is starting to become funny now. But it would be pretty ironic just to see him in the 42. Part of me wants him to see him in the 48, just because I think with Hendrick power he could do a lot, but we'll see.
It's going to be a long off season to figure out where exactly, or not really a long off season, but it's going to be an interesting few weeks as far as Bubba Wallace is concerned to figure out where he is going to go, which brings us into Richmond. We're going to be racing on Saturday night. As you already know, Kevin Harvick has locked into the playoffs. Denny Hamlin will probably be right behind him. This is a track that has been good to Hamilton in his home state of Virginia the last few years. But, Michael, we've got some drivers that really need some help going into this season, or going into this race. Ryan Blaney and Matt DiBenedetto, we already spoke about. Cole Custer and Clint Boyer are right there on the edge of not making the playoffs. Then we got Eric Almirola, Kurt Busch, and Kyle Busch in the danger zone going into round 2. Which one of those guys do you think needs this race the most going into this Saturday?
I think Kyle Busch needs this race the most. I think he's still got some competitiveness in him, and I think this race is gonna be the make or break race for him, because this hasn't been a Kyle Busch season, and I really think he needs a win to bring himself back into contention.
Mm-hmm. I will agree with that. I really do think it needs to be a Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is going to need this race in order to get back on the up and up of things. But I really think also, obviously, the two guys at the back, Ryan Blaney, Matt DiBenedetto, they're going to need it. Blaney just needs it for a pick-me-up, because Darlington started off terribly when he lost 10 points due to the improperly mounted ballast. And then he just had a terrible night getting into incidents and running well down the order for most of Sunday's race. He needs a pick-me-up just for his own confidence going into the rest of the season, because it's hard to remember that Ryan Blaney won a race earlier this year.
I don't even remember that.
It was earlier in the season, and he has not run well since then, so he needs a real confidence booster, and a good run at Richmond on Saturday would help.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of guys need a good run on Saturday. I'm sorry, Sunday.
No, it's Saturday. It's Saturday night at 7:30.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he needs a good run. So, who's another guy I think needs another good run?
I think Clint Boyer could use one. He just needs to get out of that time. Well, actually, Eric Almirola.
I would like Eric Almirola to get a good run.
And the thing with Almirola is, I thought he was going to convert one of those polls back when they were doing the random draw based on the point standings. I thought he was going to get a win in one of those races and just could not convert. He needs a good run for his confidence as well on Saturday. We're going to see what happens at 7:30 on NBCSN as NASCAR goes to Richmond. And that is going to be on a weekend that is poignant for all Americans, as we are coming up on the 19th anniversary of the September 11th terror attacks as tomorrow at 8:45, a plane slammed into the side of what was then the World Trade Center. 30 minutes later at 9:15, another plane would strike the South Tower of the World Trade Center, starting one of the bleakest days in America's history and forever changing our world. 3,000 people died in the attacks that led to the collapse of the World Trade Center. Attacks were also carried out on the Pentagon, and a fourth plane, Flight 93, was on its way to do continued damage to Washington, D.C. before hostages on the plane stormed the cockpit and forced it to crash in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, averting further tragedy. And we just want to say, due to the fact that our show is today and not tomorrow, I just want to say that everyone here at iSports Radio gives their deepest sympathies to the families that are unfortunately having to mark tomorrow's grim anniversary as their loved ones are no longer with them. And as a country, we will mourn together tomorrow. So I would like to give my deepest condolences and to all those that were lost in those attacks. We will never forget you. And with that, we are going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up the show. We're going to do Nearest the Win first. We've got F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR this week. And I'm going to take, for NASCAR, I'm going to take Denny Hamlin. I think Scott Dixon gets it done in Mid-Ohio. And I'm going to take Max Verstappen for the Tuscan Grand Prix. Michael, who you got?
For NASCAR, I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. I think he can get it done this weekend and get himself a confidence boost. IndyCar, going to go with Scott Dixon, too. He's just on fire right now. And for F1, I'm going to go with technically I can go with Hamilton. I'm going to go with Hamilton.
All right.
Just because hopefully it'll jinx them.
So those are our picks for Nearest the Win. Hopefully that will go well especially for me, because I need to start expanding this points lead a little bit if I want to win this championship, but we'll see what happens with that. Again, if you want to play, make sure to hashtag Nearest the Win with your picks on Twitter, and we will get you into the point standings if you manage to score points. And that being said, if you want more information on all of our iSports Radio shows, make sure to check out the website, iSportsRadio.com, as well as our social medias on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you've missed any episode of any iSports Radio show, you can find them anywhere where podcasts can be heard, including right here on the Spreaker Show Reel. And if you want to get in contact with myself or Michael, Michael's at Michael_Ward25, and I am at DKJr12. With that being said, that is the checkered flag for this edition of The Extra Mile. For Michael, I'm Darryl, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.